Wild Goose is more than a festival, it's a temple. It's a spiritual community, and it's potentially a crucible for transformation.
So how does the contemplative presence fit into the social justice and political action that Wild Goose is igniting?
I'm so glad you asked that question. For those of us who are activists, and I've been an activist my whole life, there is this tendency to think we have it all figured out. There are the good guys and the bad guys. There's the broken situation and the fixers. And we come in with our swords blazing, ready to repair what is damaged and restore wholeness. And that impulse is very beautiful and very important. But what the contemplative life and orientation does is that it gives us a deep drink of listening, so that it's much more feminine in a way. Because when we turn inward and we abide in the stillness, we're able to kind of tune into what is rather than what we think about it. And maybe simply begin by holding the pain of the world in our arms like a mother would hold a child who's hurt, and lean in and hold the pain and listen and feel the pain. That means feeling the pain in the cells of our own bodies. And I feel that that's a really important starting place for any kind of conscious action, is to not think we have it figured out, to not go in with all our preconceptions loaded, but to go in with a willingness to not know. I'm really interested in the path of the mystics, and the mystics really encourage us to rest in not knowing as a starting place for our spiritual lives.
Can you talk about a mystic who was able to rest in that not knowing and end up having a dramatic impact on some sort of social change or political change coming from that place of resting?
Yeah. Well, my first book is a translation of Dark Night of the Soul by St. John of the Cross, the 16th century Spanish mystic, who was an ecstatic poet. And he was very much a contemplative. He was very much... The Dark Night of the Soul isn't about depression or having a difficult, painful experience. It's about resting in the mystery. It's about when all of our attachments to the way we think the spiritual life is supposed to make us feel kind of come undone. And all of our spiritual concepts actually crumble and they don't serve us anymore. You know, those periods on the spiritual path, especially for a mature practitioner, when everything we've been taught or everything that we've kind of hung our faith on begins to disintegrate. And that's a sign, he says, of spiritual maturity. And so John of the Cross in the Dark Night of the Soul really teaches us how to be still and stop trying to fill the emptiness with our own spiritual concepts and our own remedies. Now, how was he a social activist? John of the Cross was imprisoned for his efforts to reform the Christian community, which had disintegrated into materialism and lost all connection with spirit. And he joined up with Teresa of Avila, Santa Teresa de Avila, the great Spanish woman mystic, to help her in returning the community to its original roots of voluntary simplicity and silence, solitude, and celebration. And for that effort, he was imprisoned by his own brothers, his own Carmelite brothers, and betrayed by his own community. And he suffered deeply, and you know what saved him in his 9 months in prison? Was poetry. He composed poems in his mind and memorized them. And they were love poems to God. And poetry has saved me too. And poetry has enabled me to offer a cup to people who are spiritually thirsty so that they can drink it and go forth and be of service themselves. because every prophet needs a drink of water.
Yes. So good. So good. So, for someone who is interested in the social activism, political justice thing going on here, and have missed the contemplative aspect, where do they start?
You know, a daily practice of silence is a really good start. And it doesn't have to be sitting on a meditation cushion, although that's a really handy way to do it, is some kind of silent sitting practice. But if you're not the silent sitting type, the way to cultivate a contemplative life is to just carve out time to be present in every day. So it could be taking a contemplative walk. For me, I live in the wilderness, so my connection with nature is integral to my contemplative life. I write for a living mostly, so I'm sitting, at a desk, and I can just stop and get up and put my dog, in the car and drive a half a mile, and I'm in endless wilderness, and it feeds me. And when I show up, I don't use my devices. I don't catch up on my thinking if I can. I just feel my feet on the ground, and I can, breathe in the air and feel my connection with the earth, our mother, and it sustains me. But I'm doing that as a contemplative practice. For me, writing is a contemplative practice. What I mean by contemplative practice is simply cultivating mindful presence, just being with what is, feeling all the details of this moment, rather than getting caught up in my stories about my narrative about this moment, actually trying to tune into what is versus what I think about it. And that's contemplative practice.
So how would you like to see Wild Goose inspire change in the attendees here this year?
So it's really doing well on awakening social conscience and activating our capacity for compassion in action. What I'm not seeing as much is the stillness and the cultivation of the inward-looking gaze. And the reason I feel that that's important as a dimension in the Wild Goose experience is that without that emphasis on looking inward and becoming still, we can't necessarily hear the subtle voice of the Holy Spirit. We can hear the loud and raucous and righteous voice, which is also needed, but that subtler, still small voice needs the spaciousness of contemplative presence.
Great. Thank you. This was awesome. So
Welcome.
good.
Thank you. Thanks for your response.
Yeah.